Ah, thank you very much. I'm a robot. I need. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So, so this is the second part of the talk. I have only 1 hour, so I will have to squeeze a little because I have chosen yesterday to introduce something else concerning the reasoning on manipulation that is needed. And I would say in the examples that we have seen today, again, the questions comes to where where to place the robot and what and why, okay, permanently, where to move, how to grasp, where to place, which is a basic, I would say, ability that the robot should have in order to perform these tasks. But here we are looking to another aspects, also linked to these basic issues of what does it mean and what do we need for when we, because we want this, we want the robot and the human to collaborate. Of course, the robot will assist, etc. The robot is a slave, but still, it will have to work collaboratively with the human. So, what is this? What is behind this notion of doing things together? So, I propose to do a test. Okay, please form couples by two persons. Okay, H1 H2. Okay, and please achieve the handover of a pain. Each one gives a pain to his neighbor, and the neighbor takes the pen. Okay, so please do it. Exactly, turn. Yeah. So I'm looking from here. Okay. In fact, yes. Okay, so I've seen from here, okay, and you have done it in different ways, okay. Some played, I would say, politely and the game simply. Others, like Thorn, that wanted to to throw it to the other. Same there. They were playing in how to give a pain to the other, etc. Some collaborate, some did not. One gave a pain and the other didn't want it. Okay. Some didn't want to give a pain, a pen, etc. And also, so not only the task has been performed, not always, but you have exchanged signals between the two persons, the two agents, when performing this task. Okay. Also, some give a pain directly to the hand of the other. Others put it on the table and said, "Take it." Okay. All this happens here very quickly. So this is what and the robot will find itself in a situation like that. Okay, hand over an object to human, and in fact, this handover, we found out incrementally in the community that it is a very challenging task. It seems very simple. There are workshops now on this, on the handover, okay, which is in fact quite complex. So I will go through a number first of concepts, and then instantiation of the concepts that we have done in my team. I will also mention, of course, works of other teams, to make you a little, to see a little what there is behind all this. So here there are a set of slides borrowed by Jeff Bradshaw, with his permission, of course, on, because he has worked a lot. It is in the in Institute of Human Machine Cognition, and they worked a lot on human and machine working together. Not only robot, but also machines. They are looking for teleoperation of robots, etc., etc. And in fact, they have built a full corpus of things based essentially. The initial, I think, the work, which I like very much, is the Cohen and Levesque teamwork paper, where it's in the multi-agent community. It's essentially a multi-agent, and where they looked at what does it mean to that two agents are performing an action together. And there are a number of aspects. One of them, it's what they call the basic concept. Agents, when they have to do something together, they first need to reason and have a goal, but also a joint goal and also a persistent goal. Okay, it should be persistent over time. And there are duties from the two partners that are playing the game somehow to reason about the goal and to maintain information about the goal. Okay, so there are rules. For example, a joint persistent goal holds, and only if and only if the team members believe that the goal is not yet achieved. Okay, there is a goal and it's not achieved. Okay, and also they both believe this. They both want the goal to be achieved, because you can know, you can be aware that the goal is not achieved, but you are not committed. You don't want to help. Okay, the goal is there. Okay, there is another aspect also. Perhaps the goal is known to be achieved. Then you have to inform the other. If you know the goal is achieved, you have to inform the other. If you know the goal is unachievable, it is your duty also to inform the other and not let him struggle with it, etc., etc. I do not have time to go into details in this, but it is very interesting to see how already this maintenance of the goal persistently over time is something that is important and that we need. Okay, and if you see human-robot interaction demos today, you will see that this is not there. Okay, this is not there. Okay, not yet. And this means that teamwork needs far more than simple coordination. Okay, it's a cognitive process that is running, and this teamwork knowledge should be and must be explicitly modeled as is, independently of the task. Of course, you have to merge it with the task, but these notions are independent of a specific task. Okay, I mentioned the handover. You can find all of this in the handover, but of course, you should use the same principles for other types of tasks. Okay. And it's not that easy to implement this separately and then to merge. So these are his slides. I will not go into the details because, again, I do not have time. Even we started at 10:20, Jorn, okay? So, not at 10:15. I have to negotiate that. Okay. I will go directly to this. I think this is very interesting. This is a graphic from this paper that shows a number of interesting issues. When there is joint activity between agents, there are different aspects. One, you have what they call essentially the criteria for performing it, okay, which are linked to this basic compact that I mentioned, this basic contract between the two agents, the interdependence. The two agents are interdependent when performing this. There is a second set of things that is here, which are the requirements, what is needed for performing a joint action correctly. Of course, we are looking for the good partner, okay? And this concern, for example, interpredictability. You have to be predictable when you are performing the action. When you are doing handover, if you want to help the other, you should be predictable. Okay? You should be, also there is common ground. What is the common ground between the two agents when they're performing this? Okay, they are not exchanging everything, all the knowledge, when they're performing an action together. What is the common ground that they are using? Generic, also specific to the task. Third aspect, directability. Okay? When we're performing joint action in different situations, you have to accept to be directed from the other, and you have to accept to be responsive to the other. Also, this is key. This is the second aspect. And the third one, they call it, I like it very much, the choreography of joint activity. Why? Because there are phases in a joint activity, there are signals that you exchange between you. There are ways to coordinate. Okay, there are also, and coordination has a cost. Okay, it's not that easy to coordinate, and it makes it more difficult. That it has a cost and it has to be taken into account. All this is very generic. I will not go into details in this, but for example, it has been shown by Herbert Clark, who is still very quite old in 2 days from Stanford, that even Herbert Clark is very interesting because he's showing that even dialogue activity, he is considering it as a collaborative activity. And even for dialogue activity, he is showing that you need a common goal. You need even to agree globally on the process you will follow, the plan, somehow. He called it the recipe. Okay? And only then your dialogue will converge. If not, it will not converge. Okay, and this is for dialogue. It is, of course, very important also for physical action to be performed. I'm sorry, I will be a little fast, so I will switch all this. Well, I mentioned already these issues of interpredictability, detectability, so I'll switch it. There is another, I would say, domain where this is studied very much. It is in the human joint action domain. This is the domain I mentioned it yesterday, where essentially philosophers and psychologists meet and discuss and refine these notions of joint action between humans. Okay, what does it mean? How humans coordinate their action in space and time to perform collaborative action. You have examples here. Some are, there are different steps. The first line and then perform the task. There are different steps, etc., etc. And it could go well if you do it well. It could go awry. Okay. If you don't pay attention, then it doesn't work that well. Okay. It is very important to synchronize, etc. And this is what we want, somehow. We want to borrow what these people are doing in situations where human and robot will work together. These are standard examples, I would say. In France, I would say tarte à la crème. Every day says this. Okay, we all want to do this, but it's not that simple. And so the question here is how we humans collaborate successfully, and what is necessary to put in the robot so that it can be a good partner in performing things. And this, from this I would say, community of joint actions, there are a number of interesting things. And sometimes, if you look at their literature, you could be surprised because you find the architectures that are similar to what we are doing in robotics. Okay, architecture and philosophy. There are papers in philosophy of mind where this is an architecture. They don't call it architecture. They don't call it architecture, but it is. It is somehow. They are defining in joint action what they call the shared distal or decisional level. This for us task planning, essentially. The more contextual or proximal issues that we could call action refinement. We had examples of action refinement performed where the robot decides how to refine the action. The action has been chosen, but still it has to be refined depending on the context. But here the context includes the human. Okay. And there are situations where you need simply to coordinate, and there are other phases in the task where you need really to collaborate, even to negotiate sometimes. And in this systems, what is interesting to see is that we can make one observation, and I think it is key, and we have to put it in the robot. It's this notion of self-other distinction. When you are doing an action with an agent, there are means where you reason specifically on the fact that there are two agents there that are distinct one from the other. This is important because in order to make them converge, you have to reason about joint intention, about common ground, about what is called the mutual manifestness. You have to manifest and to exhibit that you have seen the other, that you have seen the object you want to manipulate. And this is key, and this is necessary to build and to maintain shared task representations, because there is a task to do, and so it should be represented in a way or another to perform it. So I stop here the blah blah. I would say it's very generic blah blah to go to us roboticists. Okay, and essentially we want to build systems. Okay, we want to build the robot. Okay, and so we are in a constructive approach. We have to build the system, and in fact we have to build essentially two types of things. One is all the abilities that are needed to situation assessment and interpretation. Okay, including the humans. For example, the robot ability to extract the pertinent information from observation, from reasoning, including the estimation of the mental state of the other. What is he thinking now? Okay, what does he need now? What are his beliefs now? So this is essentially the situational assessment. And from the other part, of course they are linked, the synthesis of the behavior. We want to synthesize a behavior. We want the robot to move, to do something, to speak, etc. And so we need to develop the decisional and planning processes for motion, for task, of course, for performing the action. And we'll see that sometimes it is necessary to reason on both. Okay, when you are planning, where you are performing an action or another, you are planning for yourself and also for the other. Okay, to understand what he will do, what he can do, etc., etc. This notion of planning for both, we should also include it in the robot. Now, this is the framework we are using in, I would say, in my lab when we discuss to make it a little more concrete. Okay. First, it is task-oriented. There is something to do together. Okay, we are not here simply to say support of human or the robot coach. I would say there is something to do. Okay, and in fact, we're in situations where the human and the robot share the task and share the space. Okay, and they are in they observe the scene. Okay, they observe mutually one another. Okay, there is multimodal dialogue. You can speak, you can make gestures, etc. The deictic, okay, for communications. And what is interesting here is that, so there is a task. We and would like the robot to observe the human, observe the task, observe the human. Of course, the human will observe the robot and observe the task, okay, and contribute to it. And we'd like the robot to take into account explicitly that it is observed, okay. So the robot reasons on the fact and plans on the taking into account that it is observed or not observed. It can hide, why not? But the idea is to take into account that it is observed when performing something, okay. And the observation of the human will influence how the robot will do the task. Okay, it's one of the key aspects. And so I said there is a task. We are engineers. We want it to be efficient. We should say safe first, but okay. But of course, safety is important, but it's not only for us here. Safety is more generic. We want the robot to be efficient. We want the task to be efficient, but we also want, and this is important, it comes back to this issue, we want the behavior of the robot to be acceptable by the human. Also legible. The human should immediately understand what the robot is doing at each step, what the robot is. Sometimes the robot is doing nothing. you want to know what it is doing exactly. It should never do perhaps nothing. Or perhaps it has shown that it is doing nothing, etc. So you have these notions of acceptability, legibility, and intentionality. The robot should always exhibit its intentions when performing the action in order to facilitate the communication and to help. And what will be interesting here is that we'll see how these notions could be integrated in the planning process. So I think I think that we need reasoning and planning for doing this. Okay, deliberation, planning, I would say proactive behavior, okay, projecting in the future and proposing things to do is necessary for doing this. And another thing that I mentioned already that is key here is what we call sometimes theory of mind. Not us, we roboticists, but we have to use this word also because it is used. Essentially, the idea here is that the robot needs to do some kind of mind reading, okay, to predict the mental state of its partner in order to perform the task, to try to estimate the mental state. Sometimes even not only to estimate, but also to influence the mental state of the human, of course, positively. Okay. Well, so this is the framework, I would say. So in my team, we have done a lot of, in fact, this is very large. And what we have done is that we have developed a number of ingredients, okay, concerning these different aspects. I will go through a number of them. Some are linked to, so we are doing motion planning, but we call it human-aware motion planning because we integrate the human in it. We are doing task planning, that's why we call it human-aware task planning, again, because we integrate the human there. We are doing affordances and etc. because we want to compute the affordances of the robot, but also the affordances of the human. okay, etc., etc. And so this was where we're changing architecture from time to time. This is what is under the hood, I would say. Okay, it's an architecture. You have a number of components that interact together that are responsible for these different capabilities, and we try to make them coherent and integrated in an architecture. There is a paper on this that gives the global view, I would say. So again, what does it mean for us? We who built, I would say, robot abilities. In fact, when you have human and robot acting together, permanently you have these actions that are in front of the robot, the human also. What to do? Not clear always what to do. Okay, what to do now? What to do globally? I mean the high level goal, but also locally. Who will do? Who will do the task? Sometimes it's robot, sometimes it's not the robot, it's the human. It's better that the robot does nothing, waits the human to do. Okay. The who is very important, and who will decide who is also very important. Okay. Where to perform a task? It seems simple, it's not. We have seen it for placing an object. Where to place an object? Where? It's not that trivial at all, okay? And there is a lot of reasoning and habituation and I would say social social protocols behind this only on where to put an object or where to perform a task, okay? Another very important but trivial, I would say, is when. Okay, very clear that you can do things in not in the right moment. Okay, you disturb, etc. When is also a key aspect. Time is also key, and we'll see it in several examples. How? Very often, there are different ways to achieve a task. An infinite number of ways to achieve a task or an action, and some are far more preferable than the others. Again, because they include this communication aspect, this taking into the other, taking into account the human. And I will give example. The how is key, and we see that it's not a plan that we want. It's a good plan, okay? And it's not that easy, okay? What is a good plan in a given situation, okay? Very often the robotics community who is studying planning essentially stopped at this first level, the existence of a plan. I have a plan, it's okay to perform a task. No, it's true when the robot is alone, perhaps. But when the robot is doing a task with a human, there are a number of things that are not acceptable. Okay, it cannot be acceptable by the robot. I will give you a very example. I will use K as an example. So, for example, if I am the robot, I've been asked to put this object on the table. I can do this. Okay, it's the shortest path in configuration space. Okay, now I've been asked to give the object to K. Should I do this? Okay. Okay. Same. Okay. No. Okay. I would have performed the task. The object is correctly placed, but I would have disturbed, etc. I've blocked the scene. I should have perhaps done this. Okay, to let him see the screen, etc., etc. So, and this will change completely. You cannot say I will build the path and then I will see where are the conflicts and I will try. I can do this and say sorry. Okay, not enough. Okay, not enough. Okay, sometimes it could be enough, but very often it's not enough. Okay, even if we detect afterwards this, it's too late. Okay, we have to integrate this reasoning into the planner. Okay, or into the protocols, I would say. So, what does it mean? We need models. What are the models that will allow us to do this? Okay, we have proposed some. For example, we call it cost-based planners. Okay, the cost of the plan is taken into account. We are trying to integrate human preferences, human needs in terms of costs. In order to, why costs? Because in order to compare different plans and to choose between plans. This plan has a better cost than this one, so it is preferable, etc. There is a key notion that I mentioned, which is the mental state. We have to reason about the mental state of the human, and also this also I have mentioned it. There are problems, I would say, at symbolic level concerning these aspects, at geometric level, and when they are both combined, particularly in intricate situations, and we are often in intricate situations when we are close to the human. Okay, the robot, when it is close to a human, it's intricate. Okay, and this means something. Okay, before entering into details, that very often in these situations, the robot not only should do an action, but convey information while doing it. Okay, there is a way, there is a communication towards the human included in the action. Okay, sometimes it is separate. I do this and I speak about it. Okay, sometimes it is in the way I am doing it that communication is conveyed. Okay, and so sometimes there are communication per se. You say something or you ask for something, and this will happen, of course, but also integrated with action. Okay, there is also another aspect, which is even if you don't have to do anything, you the robot, you sometimes have to exhibit your internal state. Okay, for example, for joint action, you are simply looking, but you have to show that you are joint attention with a human. All this, of course, in a timely and pertinent way. Okay. Now I will give, what time is it? Okay. I will give a set of examples to make you, again, please ask questions, please interact. Don't let me speak alone. We'll go through 4, I would say, issues, okay, that are listed here. The first one is situation assessment, again. So the question here is, we think it is important when the robot interacts with the human for the robot to reason about the mental state, but here more particularly, the perspective, the geometric aspect of the mental state, okay? What is he looking at, okay? Standard example is this one, okay? So the robot needs to know that he is looking from the other side, okay? And the robot needs to attribute an internal model, a mental state to the human in order to do this, okay? Because if the human says it's a 6, the robot should accept the fact that it's a 6 and not 9, okay? And so basically, what does it mean? We need to equip the robot with ability to put itself in the shoes of the human, okay? If possible, of course. And this is part of the self-other distinction that I mentioned before. I have here very simple examples running here where you have, here's Aurélie, you have human and robot performing a simple task, which is building a stack of objects, okay? And I do not have to go to details, but it is important here for the robot not only to perform a task, but to observe that to know that it is observed. So it does not have to say to Aurélie, I put the object on the cube 1 on the object, because it sees that Aurélie is in front of it, is seeing the thing. Okay, it does not have to inform about this. Doing the action is enough. Okay, in some other situations there is perhaps negotiations, who will do what, etc. And it is important for the robot to distinguish what it knows about the task and the state of the task, the plan, and the state of the plan, and what Aurélie knows about it. Okay. And this is one key aspect of shared representation. Here again, I'm citing a philosopher, Elizabeth Bashri. And so what does it mean? How can we do this here in this simple situation? Okay, it's very simple. Okay, we have the human, we have the robot. Okay, what do we need? We can, okay, I will switch this because we don't have time. Okay, I switch this also. Okay, with this perception, okay, the robot perceives the environment, so the robot perceives, well, Aurélie becomes bold here, but okay, it's still Aurélie. Okay. The robot perceives I would say, perceives all this. It perceives itself, okay, in the scene, localize itself. It sees the table, okay, the table, that it is a table, and secondly, its position. It observes the human position. Let's assume it is able to track the human while performing a task, the orientation of the head of the human. It sees the board. There is a board in the middle where the game is played in this board, and there are cubes. Okay, there are cubes of 4 colors that are put here and there. Okay, so first there is this perception. Let's assume we have it. Okay. Then there is an issue because the problem when the robot perceives, it computes this. Okay, the coordinates of the objects. If it has to do something with the human, it is better if it transforms. The human sees that the green cube is on the table at his right. Okay, so we need already to solve this problem. Okay? And so we need some kind of special reasoning to equip the robot with special reasoning in order to perform this. Okay, the robot should be able to compute the fact that objects are on table, the fact that one object is next to the other, the fact that this object is visible by itself and visible by the human or not, the fact that this object or this one is reachable by the human and by the robot. Why reachable? Why visible? Because it's essentially a pick and place operation. Okay, to pick and place, you assume you need visibility and reachability. Okay, that's why we need this. These notions, and we need to compute this. Okay, so you imagine that we can compute this. Why? Because the robot could use its inverse kinematics and motion planning ability to compute reachability. It can model the human as a kinematic chain and also compute reachability of the human to the objects. Why not? Okay. So this is a model of the human as a robot, somehow acting. It also can see where the human is looking at, etc., etc. So let's imagine that we are able to compute this. Okay. Now that we have this, okay, we need to know to build the mental state of each one. Okay. Who sees what? Okay. In this situation, they all agree. You have simply the fact that it is at the right of the left, okay, the perspective, but they both see everything. But if we are in this situation, it's different, okay? And here we'd like the robot to reason and to understand that the human is not seeing these two objects, okay? And so here we need, when we compute visibility, we want to compute visibility in terms of, again, geometrically, okay? If one object is hidden by an occluding obstacle from the human point of view, okay? From the robotic point of view, you don't know if an object is here for the robot, you cannot see, okay? But for a human robot point of view, it's important. And having this, then you can imagine that you have a mental state management, okay? What is interesting here, for example, is that the robot now could understand or could interpret correctly what the human will say. Because why? Because the robot here will interpret what the human will say in the perspective of the human, not of its own perspective. Okay? So if the guy says, I want the object at the right, it's at his right, not right of the human. Okay? If I would say, here there are two remotes, okay? One is here, the other is here, okay? If K asks me, I'm the robot, give me the remote, a stupid robot will ask, which one? Okay? This robot will say, it will immediately understand that it's this one, okay? Because the other, you don't see it. You don't know its existence, okay? Same, if there are two remotes, one here, and again, you ask me, give me the remote, clearly it's this one. It's not the other. A stupid robot will say, which remote do you want? Okay, because I see two. Okay, so these kind of things are important, and they can be taken by the fact that of interpreting what the human says in his mental state. Okay. I will stop here. Now I will show. So let's assume we have this. Let's assume we have this, and we decided to test the Sally and Anne classical I will test with our robot. I don't know if you know the Sally and Anne test. Okay, somebody? It's very simple. It's a test that is done for small children. Okay, until 2 years, 2 years and a half, and until 3, to see how they understand the world. The idea that you have Sally and Anne. To child, and so you show this to a child, or you play the game in front of him, and the child is only an observer, only looks at this. Okay, and what you see here, Sally has there is a basket and a box. Okay, Sally puts a ball, in the basket and leaves. Okay, and then Anne takes the ball from the basket and put it in the box. Okay, and then Sally comes back, and you ask a child where Sally will fetch for the ball. Small children very proudly will tell you, in the box. Okay, there is only one truth for them. Okay, it's only at 2.5, 3 years that they understand that there are different perspectives, and it seems that autistic children have these problems even after that. Okay, they don't have this idea. So we are trying to do this to track human beliefs. So I will show you here an example that we have implemented. So we have a robot in red, which is, I don't see the red here, but this is red, this is blue and green, observing to humans and keeping track of their beliefs. Okay, so what we will see, this. So what you here is, this guy is coming here, it's Mamoun, we call him Blue. Okay, because the robot distinguishes only with the t-shirt who is who. And the robot observes the scene, observes the human. We have simply oversimplified perception. We have tags. Okay, when we localize a tag, we know what object it is, and we put it in the model of the robot. Okay, it's completely simplified here because perception is not important here at this level. So the robot localizes the objects and try to build a model of the knowledge of the human. Clearly here, he's seeing everything on the table. Okay. Now green comes, okay, stands near blue, so they have almost the same perspective, and the robot will compute this. Okay. Then, so here they have here they comes, and you can see perhaps here some green balls. That seems the knowledge, the uncertainty of the knowledge of the human, and here the robot has computed. Now it knows. Okay. Now green leaves and blue modifies the environment in a way that it takes the object which was here and put it here. Okay. Okay. And now green comes back. Blue has left, and we'd like the robot to understand that this guy does not know, observes that the object here has disappeared, okay, and he doesn't know where it is because it is hidden here, okay. And for doing this, so it is implemented and running quite well, essentially by computing this geometrically. I would say this is running real time, and again here the robot is only observing, and building its own mental states and the mental states of the two persons, of blue and green. Okay. Okay. So this is running. Sorry, I will have to accelerate. So believe me, it works. Okay. And what is important here is that in this situation, not only the robot knows this, but if necessary, it could give this, what we are showing here in this plan, it could give the information to the human. Okay, you want this box, it's there. You don't see it, it's there. Okay, you can take it because it's not far from you. Okay, I can see it's not far from you, etc. This is the kind of thing that we would like the robot to be equipped with. Okay, again, to be pertinent. So having this, you can imagine here a robot computing where the human can see and can reach an object, and if you ask this robot to give this object to the human, it will find a position that is visible, and where the object is visible and reachable by the human. Okay, this is done in discrete way, discretizes the environment and computes the different possibilities. Okay, and behind this we have a motion planner that is running, it avoids obstacles, etc., etc. Okay. These are other examples where the robot is able, you ask the robot to give the 3 objects and put it on the table, so it has to put the 3 objects near the human in a way that they are all visible, and there could be an obstacle, etc., etc. Okay, so these are situations that this planner can solve. Okay, what I would like to mention, I mentioned this yesterday, this robot for doing this not only computes placement, but also needs to reason about the different ways to grasp an object. To grasp it and re-grasp it. And having this, the robot could compute not only the visibility and reachability of objects, but also the effort to see and effort to take. Okay? Because this will be used in its reasoning. Okay? If it is easy for the human to do something, or if it is costly. Okay, again, I will switch this because we do not have time. I had the video here running where we show where the robot asks for object to be given, in not only to facilitate for itself, but to facilitate for the human. I will switch this. I wanted very quickly here to show, because we have implemented also, we have done this perspective taking also in a project right now where we are reasoning not on perspective of object, but a perspective in the 3D environment of shops, of objects far from the human. And what we have here is that we have Pepper here, and Pepper is computing its own visibility of the scene, but also the visibility of the human, because it is perceiving the human. So here, Pepper knows that it is observed by the human. Okay, it is in its projected estimation of the field of view of the human. Okay, so if the robot does this, it knows that it is observed. Okay, for example, okay, because it is here in the scene. Sorry. Essentially by using CAD models and computing visibility of objects using GL, for example. Okay. No. What we have here, the robot observes. Here we simplify again the thing. We have a motion capture that allows us to know where the human is looking at. Okay. But today we are using also a vision system which allows the robot to estimate the position and orientation of the head. And from this, the robot computes the visibility of the human in the scene. Okay, having a model of the scene. The robot has a model of the scene. Based on this, it can compute. I have it here running, but I will not have time to show it to you. Here it's Pepper. It's running very slow because the image is sent through Wi-Fi. It's very slow to send it back. But still, the robot is computing here, is tracking as much as it can where this guy is looking. Okay, for example, the guy at one moment will do this and approach a human, and the robot will be able to see that he is there looking at me. Okay. I would have liked to show you this, but I don't have time. I'm sorry. We have implemented this for a robot in a mall, where the robot is reasoning on the perspective of itself and of the humans in a place, and for pointing, it reasons in order to perform or to compute the right placement in order to share perspective. Okay, if you want to show something to a guy, you tell him, "Come to me. From here, you can see it." Okay, and this perspective computation is done in this system. It's here. I will not show it because of time. But you can see here that the robot is here again, trying to estimate the view of the human in the scene. Okay, a lot of computations behind this. I will switch. You have two persons from last year for which you can discuss these details if you are interested. Okay, I will switch. Yes, I want to say this. This is recent work that could interest you also, where this reasoning on the objects and what it happens to them during interaction in terms of visibility, etc., here has been extended using a physical simulator. Why the physical simulator? Essentially, to try to estimate the motion of objects that are no more visible. Okay, so what will happen here is that the robot, whenever an object disappears from its scene and it is not tracked, will run the physical simulator. And because of this, the robot is able to compute that the guy is moving all the objects from one box to another. Okay, and the robot could infer this without observing the objects, because they are inside the first box and they are moved to the other box because of this is what we are doing ourselves. We are running when we don't see the scene, we run simulators to try to estimate the state. Concerning perspective taking, I also mentioned I will give this a number of other contributions here. Now I go to the second step, which is elaborating a plan. Still, human and robot have to work together. Okay, so they have to build a plan and to run it. Here again, the idea and behind this is to build or to reason about a cooperative plan, a plan that both will have to do. And this means that not only the robot will have to plan to synthesize a plan that satisfies the goal, but also to reason about who will do what are the preferences of the human and in the task, and also what is the belief of the human concerning the task. Okay, what the human knows about the task in order to perform it. This is a very simple example that we are doing. If we need to clean the table, it's a classical problem, but here we have human and robot. Okay, there is one box here that is reachable by both. It's very easy. The plan is two parallel streams. Each one does what he wants, and it's finished. Okay, but if the box is here, the robot will have to hand over the object to the person at the right moment in order to perform the task. Okay, so here the robot builds his plan and builds because it reasons on the fact that there is a human here who can do pick and place, who can do handover, etc., etc. And then still the handover, it's not that clear. Should the robot give it directly? Should put it near the human so that he can take it, etc., etc. Okay, but still at high level here we can build this kind of plan, and this kind of plan, there are a number of interesting aspects here again concerning this issue of human preferences, etc. Not only you have two streams and synchronization and causal links between the streams, but also when building this, we can introduce preferences, costs, okay, utilities, linked to a number of social rules, for example, all things that will make the plan preferable to the human. I will give a very simple, so it's essentially a hierarchical decomposition of the problem from a high-level goal until reaching the leaves, which are two streams of execution, human and robot. And this is reactive and could be called incrementally. What is interesting here, these are two plans who are performing the same goal, achieving the same goal. But in this plan, the human will have to wait for the robot. In this plan, the robot will not have to wait for the robot. Okay. We like coordination, but it's better, it's costly. Okay. And whenever it's possible to avoid it, not to make the human waiting for the robot, it is important. Humans do not like to wait, okay, particularly for a robot. Okay, so if there is a choice, the robot should do this choice, okay, and not impose waiting, etc. to the human. Unless there is it's a game and they want to play together, then you put higher cost to this synchronization, etc., and then you allow the planner to choose it. Okay. I will here switch again. It's also implemented. We are running a system like that where you could say do not have time here to show that the robot can exhibit a plan, can verbalize it, can answer questions about it if necessary. Okay, and here again we have the full stack, I would say, the high-level plan, but also the execution. And you see here the robot is tracking the human while it is performing the task. Okay, switch. Planning handover, they mentioned. Again, the handover. In fact, most of the time, when you see robots performing handover, in fact, everything is solved before we start. Okay, but if the human is in a position when the robot cannot reach him, then there will be an issue. Because what I would like is the robot to compute where to hand over in a position that is acceptable to the human, integrating the fact that the robot will compute where the human has to go to do the handover. It's a contribution of the human to the task. Okay, and this is an example again, but it is important. And how we are doing this? Again, we are doing it essentially by reasoning on the full problem, planning for both, and integrating costs linked to a number of issues, including the comfort of the human to take an object. Okay, if I prefer when robot comes to me and hand over to give it to me here, but if needed, only 10 minutes. Okay. If needed, if this is blocked, etc., I would accept the robot to give it to me here. Okay. Okay. But not if there is no obstacle here and the robot gives it to me here. Why? Okay. I will not accept this. Okay. All these things have to be taken into account. Again, I will switch quickly to this. Sorry. Uh, I will switch all this because I do not have time. There is again here visibility, etc. I will switch all this to go directly to an example running. Okay, simply to show. So here it's very simple. You ask your handover robot does this. There is an obstacle. It's different. There is a big obstacle. The robot should find another position. And sometimes there is a need of contribution of both. Okay, sometimes it's absolutely necessary, like here. Sometimes it depends. Okay, the human, for example, here. Okay, if you have a strong guy who is in a hurry, the robot will do this. If you have an old person that has difficulty to move, the robot will be more intrusive, but will go until giving the object to him. Again, this notion of balancing the effort and integrating this in being able to tune the plan, perhaps in real time, is important in these issues. Okay. It's also implemented. I will switch this. Well, it has been also, because we like to play things, it has also been implemented with 2 robots and 2 humans, where we have to plan where the different humans will have to take. Is it running? Perhaps no. No. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I will switch this because I don't have time. Okay. So all this means that there is an issue linked to the fact of building a good plan. What does it mean? Okay. It means managing this joint task achievement, taking into account legibility and acceptability, and also, this also could be, there are compliance with, I would say, conventions. There are coherent attitudes that are visible and others which are not, etc. And this happens in different situations. We have done some work in sharing space, for example, in motion planning. We have shown that it is interesting when a robot has to move environment where there is humans, to take into account a kind of cost, which is the cost of approaching to the human, the distance between the robot and the human. Okay, so this could seem simple, but well, there are a number of folks around it. There is a notion behind this which is called proxemics, but still it can be discussed. And basically the idea is that we have a cost that goes higher when the robot approaches the human, but it depends on the context. If the human is standing, he is less, if he's not comfortable than if he is sitting, for example. And if having this, if the robot has to go from one place to another and has nothing to do with the human, it will stay of the valley of low cost. It will not climb the costs. Okay, it will stay in the valley. But if the human asks the robot to come, then the robot will climb the cost, and only then. Okay, only then, because you have given the authorization to the robot to climb the cost to come to you. Okay. So this is in 2D, but you can do it in more complex situations. And it's running quite well, reactively. It has been implemented now. It's something standard. We have run it, for example, in Schiphol Airport quite intensively for a robot that is running this. But what happens here is that, okay, again, so there are other works also that I'm mentioning here where people are taking into account the humans dynamically, where they are moving, not only static. And we have also shown and studied how this happens. For example, the fact that even if you have this, when the robot is very close to the human, you don't like the robot to change its mind several times, okay, because it is confusing. Okay, so we have done some user study to show that when the human is close to the robot, it's better that it only adapts its speed and no more its path, waiting for the human to make the choice. For example, we have done this study. I will show you now. Even with this simple problem again of navigation, which is very simple. Why? Because it's simply going from one place to another. What happens if the contribution of the human is necessary? Okay, it is necessary because the robot cannot go from one place to another because there is a human there. Okay, switch all this to give you an example. I'll do it the other way around. How we have implemented this, we have essentially used a kind of optimization scheme where the plan of the robot is a kind of elastic band to reach the goal, and it is reasoning on the human also as performing elastic band. And so the robot will play with these two elastic bands. One, it's what it is doing. The other, what it is expecting the human to do. Okay, and of course, these two bands are not the same. The band of the robot is between 5 and 0. Yeah, already 0, 5. So let's see what's happening here. Okay, the two bands are running. The human is a cylinder. Okay, and the robot is recognizable. Okay, so this is simple and easy. You can implement it in different ways. Now, if you assume the human is the master, so his elastic band is tight, and the elastic band of the robot is not. So the robot will avoid the human and not the converse. This is here an example where the human band is tight, so it's the robot who will take the load, okay, to cross. I will switch this now here. If you give this problem to a standard robot, even a robot equipped with human-aware motion planning, it will say there is no solution. Okay, the only solution if the human accepts to contribute to this. Okay, and so having this scheme, it is possible to perform it. Okay, because the robot will reason on the fact that the human will do this, and even if we tune correctly the costs, etc., you could add two things. One, first, the robot as soon as possible will show its choice, okay, and will reassure the human. Because here also it is very important, because the robot knows that it will not collide the human. The human does not know. Okay, so the robot has to do something to exhibit to the human that has taken the good decision sufficiently ahead of time, etc., etc. Okay. Okay. Since I have to stop, I will conclude because I had too much. I just want to show you that it happens also for, not only for, I've shown 2D, but it happens also for 3D, for handing over the objects, etc. We are computing the comfort of the human, as I mentioned. This, an example of, it should run automatically, but it's not. Yeah, here. What is interesting here is this robot is doing a handover, okay? And this robot also is doing, oh, sorry. What I want to show here is essentially the fact that this robot is performing tasks. The other one is integrating these costs. I don't know why it is not moving. It should. And what is interesting here is that what you see here is that the robot will stay far and will make its arm go towards the human. And this is not scripted. It's the planner who has produced this behavior. Okay, the robot is a parameter in the planner. Okay, you change the robot, it will do differently, but it will still try to integrate this I would say features in its path. Okay. I mentioned because it is important in HRI studies. It is important to do evaluation, also to verify that the choices and decisions that we make and the plan that we do have some meaning when you do it with the real users. And for this handover, we have run some quite serious evaluations objectively, I would sense by measuring physiology measures, but also by questionnaires, that the robot prefer effectively this way of doing the task. Okay. And there is one last part that I will not comment here, that unfortunately, which is very important, is what happens is the fact that the robot will have to manage permanently. I will just show this. And I will stop here. It's old work, but still it is pertinent and we are using it. Don't know why I have lost the mouse. It's here. Here the robot, what is it doing? It is giving an object to Aurélie. It's very simple. Okay, but what it is doing is not only doing this. It is tracking her and tracking what she is doing. Okay. And for example, here the robot gives it's tout va bien. Okay, the robot gives the object, she takes the object, etc. In a second state, what will happen is that sorry, do not have time. It could happen that it is disturbed. She is disturbed and looks elsewhere. The robot should stop and propose again. She can leave, and so the robot should detect this and stop and not waiting for the rest of its life there, waiting for the synchronization, etc., etc. All this is important when building this robot behaviors in interaction with humans. Okay, so it contains, again, producing the good signals, measuring the good signals, and adapting the task. And all this needs decision, in fact. I stop here just for you. Sorry. To go to the conclusion, if I can. So this is not my work. Okay, it's the work of all these people. All these are co-authors of this work. As I said from the beginning, it's not finished. There are a lot of things to do. We are just starting to scratch what we have to do. And concerning these decisional aspects, I have tried here to put in one page all the constraints that should be taken when producing a behavior. Okay? Which is this notion of cost base, the question of constraints, these questions of properties that the behavior should have, and also criterias. Okay, there are a number of things I didn't mention. For example, the rhythm. Rhythm is key, absolutely key when performing actions. I mean also social signals. Social signal processing is also a key aspect that should be absolutely taken into account when building this kind of robots, etc., etc. Thank you, and sorry for the